All righty, welcome everybody. We've achieved the first goal of every webinar. People showed up.
Leave a comment or let us know if you were forced to be here beyond
Right?
your will.
Yeah. We were just talking about, set the expectation low. The expectation was as long as somebody shows up, we're winning, right?
Show up and take a shower was my expectation.
There you go. I even did my hair for you.
You know, you're such a good looking dude.
I don't know about that.
You got a lucky missus. Or missus to be, I should say.
Missus to be. She reminded me the other day that we have now been together 9 years. Like,
Man, I think we might be on the same trajectory. When are you, do you guys have a date yet?
No.
No?
Nope.
And how does she feel about that?
She doesn't care.
Yeah, okay.
She doesn't care.
We just sent our invitations out.
Nice.
I think yesterday.
By we, does that mean she?
Oh, I definitely had that. What do you think? And she shows me like 6 revisions of it. And, she's like, well, do you have an opinion? Which one do you like? And I'm sitting there just going, I don't.
Whichever one makes you happy, dear.
That one, right?
Cardboard pizza. I don't even know. I don't know what that shot is there, Mike. I enjoy all pizza. Oh, this is a deep dish. This is the deep dish conversation.
People are bringing it back.
Yes, it's coming back. So that means they paid attention last time. Maybe not.
Mike.
To the important
well, Mike's
stuff.
A good dude. Okay, so I had a Mike actually scheduled a call with me just to talk about this pizza topic.
Talk about pizza. Yeah.
I mean, he's in Chicago though, so.
Okay.
I mean, you know where his alliance is. And again, I'm going to throw out the Detroit thing. I had Detroit pizza again the other day because Costco sells them now. And I'm sorry, the French bread thing just does it for me. I know. Boot off the island. I also like pineapple on my New York style pizza, but
I'll put pineapple on a pizza. I'm good with that. But if I want breadsticks, I'll get them by themselves.
Yeah, I think my all-time though is pepperoni and jalapeno. You?
Oh wow. I would say pepperoni and banana peppers.
Yeah.
I like that. The little zing of the banana pepper, but I like jalapeno.
Underrated topping on a lot of things. What are they? Pepperoncinis.
We don't do jalapenos on pizza. That's an interesting one. I'll have to try that.
I mean, I am like 2 minutes from Mexico.
One that I had in DC at DattoCon last year was a really spicy pepperoni with honey drizzled on it, which was really interesting, but it was freaking amazing.
I've had it before. I've had one where they did a spicy honey.
Okay.
Really, really good. No, it's a great topping. Somewhere I remember doing that. Oh, and then like mashed potato pizza with hot sauce. That was really good. One time I had that. You get the weird places that do the screwed up type of pizza toppings. You feel like that guy from Mr. Deeds with the crazy eyes, peanut butter and gumball pizza.
Well, if Ashley's in, I'm gonna have to try jalapenos on a pizza. So Ashley's pushing the vote over the top. Anybody who I appreciate enough to let him put a roost stamp on top of my head can I'll take their advice on pizza.
Well, and she is my boss, so good thing we're aligned.
Everybody needs a boss. All right,
so she keeps me in line.
Thanks for coming out, everybody, especially for listening to us ramble and rant as we get started here. Obviously, we were planning this on the run up to April Fool's Day, but in case you hadn't figured it out, that guy above me in the window, or I don't know where he's at in your window, but he ain't no fool. He's got a lot of opinions on some of these customer success and account management and VCIO metrics, and most of them are informed opinions. So we're going to jump right in. We're going to talk about some of those opinions. I'm going to ask all the dumb sales guy questions because that's my job here. If you don't know me, my name's Alex Farling. I'm the one of the co-founders and the channel chief here at Lifecycle Insights. I had an MSP for 16 and a half years. I had problems delivering VCIO and account management services to my customers and helped some folks build a product to solve for that. So if you want to connect with me, my LinkedIn's down at the bottom. Kyle and I are both super active on LinkedIn. Happy to carry the conversation on there after we get done here, because I think you'll find there's a lot of good topics today. We'll talk about overlap and some things with the last webinar. We'll share the link to the last webinar in just a minute, and I think there'll be a lot here to carry forward and talk about. So with that, we'll let this pretty face introduce himself.
Oh, it's funny. I saw 20 years on yours, and I'm just sitting here going, I think I'm at 20 years now at this point, and that hurts to say. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
people look at me and go, "There's no way you're 20 years into the industry." Well, I started when I was 15 years old. Little rollout from a company called Geek Squad. Been in the industry for about 20 years now. I know Mike, right? Shout out Geek Squad again. I got to say it just because you're here. And through building my own MSP as well as Sierra Pacific Group, one of the larger software consulting firms, also EOS scaling up implementer specifically for MSP and software. At the end of the day, my goal is to push companies to grow fast and grow and not kill yourself in the process. Like Alex said, we're real active on LinkedIn, so hit us up and heckle us at times because it's fun. It's interactive. Let's make the platform not boring and just a bunch of bots and marketing people now.
Right. I feel sometimes like I'm just talking to vendors out there. So come follow us and prove us wrong on that one.
You know what's
Um,
funny though? I noticed you said account management services.
mhm.
Do you consider account management a service?
If it's done right,
Interesting.
I'm delivering value to you and it's part of the service I offer, then absolutely.
It's an
We can
interesting way
unpack
to
that.
phrase it.
We can unpack that as we go, but I think everything you deliver should be viewed as a service. And if it doesn't deliver the value of a service, then you need to step back and look at why you're doing it.
But they're not managing endpoints.
It's okay. Okay. We sell our time, not our endpoints. So
No,
if you
I just
missed the
find it.
last one, we went into a lot of these fun little conversations in the last one. I'm going to throw the link up here. We did this last one on St. Patty's Day. No, a couple days before St. Patty's Day. We talked about how to not leave account management KPIs to luck. You'll get a lot out of that recording. It is live on YouTube. You don't have to give us your email address or sign away your life to get access to it. But there is the link to that one. If you did not catch it, we talked about the responsibilities of an account manager. And we kind of reviewed this exact same slide where account managers, they have a job of making sure all your customers are aligned. They probably have a quota around making sure that they're doing upsells and cross sells, that they're continuing to grow accounts that you're already active in, right? We talked about client success really briefly in the fact that they probably don't carry the same quota. Their focus really is customer retention and adding client lifetime value. These are folks who we just want to make sure that they stay forever and that they're happy and that they have an amazing experience. And then we'll talk in 2 weeks, a week, 2 weeks, whenever the next one is. We will talk about the C-level VCIO suite responsibilities, right? This is a fractional C-level employee at your client's organization who has a completely different goal set and completely different responsibilities than an account manager. And we will talk through all of this about why there are struggles when one person tries to wear 2 or 3 of these hats. And we'll specifically dive into that today around the customer success manager portion of that. You got anything to say on that, Kyle? What did I miss?
Honestly, I think you're good, man. I think that we're starting to unpack the logic and the strategy on why these 3 seats are important, whether you have dedicated bodies or not.
Pearlie just called me out on the fact that I sent the link only to you. So there we go. I have no to everybody. It defaults to hosts and panelists. I apologize. I think at first it thought I wanted to talk about you guys right in front of you here. All right,
So you want to just send me little love letters.
right. Send Kyle a little bit of love there. All right, so as we kind of step into this, right? We talked last week, and we're just continuing to uncover the slide. Right, last week, customer success managers were blanked out here. We just talked about KPIs for account management. So do you want to just take these in order? Do you have one that jumps out to you as a favorite? How do you want to kind of pick this apart?
Do you mind if I lecture a little bit?
Yeah, do it. This is your soapbox, man.
Well, yeah, soapbox is a rant, and that's me just going on it. But I think there's some logic here. Yeah. So one of the things, guys, that we, especially with the clients I've had or my own MSPs, the one thing we need to really start with is some level of a strategy. And let's see, make sure it shaded my entire screen. That's sexy from a security perspective. That's a massive fail on my part. Why is it not working?
It's a Mac guy thing.
This is why you do these things live, right?
Yeah, all right. And record it for posterity's sake.
What's weird is it's not letting me click my share. There we go. There we go. I think it's finally going.
Yay.
People in the future are going to be looking at this going, man, this guy must be on drugs or something.
What does this
So,
guy know about technology?
yeah, right. This is why I stick to a business strategy now and just
There we
focus
go.
on that. So, high level, guys, when we're
Art.
talking about these seats, I want to break this down just a little bit in that all of us MSP owners, we have a fort. Whether you're an owner or an employee, it's important to understand that there's some level to where we have a finance team, we have an operations team, we have a revenue team, and usually some form of a technology team. Now, this would be way too long of a call if we broke it all down, but right, we want to start high level thinking about us as the owner, as well as the owner of our functions, how this delegates into responsibilities, not necessarily am I full time this seat or not. So don't get too hung up on I don't have a body, because we're going to address that towards
I
the
have to
end.
get over the dude in the window with his crown on. Like that is
Right, Mr. CEO, the owner guy up here.
run the fort. Yep, got it.
Right, or we should all have aspirations at some level, right, to make this you. Now, in these forts, right, we're going to kind of ignore these two guys for right now, and really we're going to focus on this guy today. And then, like Alex said, next week we're going to talk a little bit about why we feel VCIO can ultimately be something that we would confer to as a revenue generating employee. Now, in looking at this, and you got to love sometimes technology when you do things live, is we do have some level of understanding that in our revenue forts, we have a sales. Wow, look at this mess up. This is fun. We have some level of a
Control
sales
Z,
and
man.
marketing.
Control Z.
Yeah, Control Z. In our departments, to where sales is normally broken out in any type of organization into 3 verticals. In your sales team, you have some type of lead gen. Sometimes you'll hear SDR. Sometimes you'll hear outbound sales. Sometimes you hear cold callers. They can be called many names, but ultimately they are trying to find your new clients. Now, once they find those clients, somebody has to close those clients, right? Which is normally referred to as either your inside sales reps, your sales reps, sales executives. They can have many different titles, but high level, they are closing those clients to become an account, right? This is the prospect to client process. And sometimes you'll hear conversion, close rate. There's so many acronyms for this. Now, last but not least, we have this way to maximize, which we talked about last time, account management, which is really focused on this LTV, lifetime value that client brings you while they are considered a client, right before they get rid of you. And then what we're focused on today is, last but not least, you have to keep that client around. Now, yeah, we're having some technical glitches, so hopefully this is concerned.
Try zooming out to 100% and see if it cleans
Let's,
itself up.
let's see if it does it. Sorry if this is, oh, hey, look at you.
There we go. There we go. I've had a Mac for 2 weeks, so I'm an expert now.
Better. Someone's got to be it, not the numbers guy. Someone has to be in your company, whether it's a dedicated body or yourself as the owner or yourself as the account manager. Someone has to make sure that these clients do not churn, meaning that they do not walk away, because traditionally in these flows, your client gets more profitable as the lifespan goes on. They go from, right, they cost you money because I have to pay an employee to find them, to I'm making a little bit of money because they're buying one service from me. Maybe it's a low dollar service, to a little bit more money because now we're starting to, right, sell more to them, get them on our MSP plans, get them on our cybersecurity plans. They're starting to have product life cycles.
Well, as we're life cycling out products, we're aligning products, right? So we get rid of the FortiGate and we put in the Sophos box that we know how to manage, and we get them off G Suite and we get them on 365 where we know how to manage them. And the more of those products we get, the more of the security stack we build in, the more we get 365 dialed in and get their secure score up, the fewer problems we have, and the better that client behaves, the happier that client probably is, even going to the point where at some point they're going to have that call with you and say, hey, Kyle, I pay you a lot of money, but nothing ever breaks anymore. What the hell do I pay you for, right? But that's a great point to reach in a relationship, because then you get to go back and make sure your client understands all of the proactive things that you do to make sure that that they don't have the experience they had with the other guy.
Totally, right? And then they stick around because you built a relationship with them, which means you're maximizing the profitability of the client, not just in the revenue, because they've adopted your stack, they've adopted your tools, you've gone over all the hurdles of resetting everything. So now we need to make sure that these clients never churn because they're our highest profitable clients. And that's where a lot of us get lost because, right, what ends up happening is this step and this step in a smaller MSP sometimes get forgotten. And what ends up happening, right, is we keep looking out for these new clients. This client over here gets, forgotten, and then they churn. And now I'm dealing with low profitability clients.
Yeah.
And low profitability clients that are in onboarding, I don't know about you guys, they're the most noisy they could ever be.
Yeah.
They take the most time to manage. You have to reset a bunch of things. They're
Well,
sometimes not happy.
Paying attention to them, though, right? We're stuck in the flywheel of just go deal with the thing that's on fire, instead of spending some time making sure that our existing clients purchase deeper and wider into our product stack, and that they're spending more and more money with us. And that existing client who you already have a relationship, my God, it's easy for that account manager to sell them more products and services, way easier than it is to meet someone new and convince them why they should do business with you.
Exactly, right. And that's why this conversation becomes so fruitful, because it's an instant driver to protect that most profitable client in your stack that's also probably a raving fan, right? You've built a relationship, you've saved them, you've laughed together, you cried together, they had outages together, right? Like you've all been in the mix to where now they're also that referral source when you go to any type of local event.
Yep.
Right. And that becomes, I think, and we can go back to your slides, but one little takeaway I want to give from everybody is that if you put one KPI on each of these seats, because it's one in person, right? Number of opportunities, number of net new clients that they bring in, the lifetime value of each of your clients, and the churn that you have, right? That's an easy way for you smaller MSPs, where maybe you only have one sales rep, to have some monthly drivers to see, are we succeeding in sales in a more rounded approach?
Yeah. Yeah. And as we get into the KPIs that we're talking about here, one of the big ones, and the one we put first, was churn. And Wes Spencer said this to me the best, and I've tracked churn since before I was in IT. I mean, when you were at Best Buy, I was at Bell Atlantic Mobile, which is now Verizon Wireless. And at Bell Atlantic Mobile, we tracked this thing called churn, because if I sold somebody a cell phone today and they canceled it 90 days out, guess what? Bell Atlantic clawed back my commission. Right? Because they weren't paying the sales guy to do all this work for a customer that didn't stay. So churn is something I've known about since I was a kid, but it's something that we just don't think about. But when I was talking to Wes Spencer, he said to me at Perch that they track churn very specifically. They said that every customer success manager's number one KPI was 0 unexpected churn. There will be an account you lose. There will be an account you lose, and that's not your customer success manager's fault. Your customer will get bought. Your customer will go out of business. Your customer will go into some weird vertical that you don't feel it's the right place for you to follow. But all of that, you should see it coming. You should know it's coming. You should be able to prepare the management team. You should be able to make business decisions based on knowing that it's coming. The damage of churn is really when it's a surprise.
And that's definitely on that mature index, right? Because now I have a way to define good churn versus bad churn.
Yep.
But for a lot of us, especially some of my new clients that I bring on when I'm building their strategy, they don't know what their churn is, period. So, right, because there's maturity levels to some of these KPIs. Like, do I track units for churn? Do I track revenue? You have clients right now that haven't fired you, but they're churning, right? Because they may pay you $5,000 this month in MRR for the next 6 months. And then month 7, they pay you $4,500. That's $500 a churn. Yep.
And so every MSP is different. Some of you will track it by supported users. Some of you will track it by dollars. We tracked it by dollars because I'm pretty simple. And that seemed like the simple way to do it.
Some will track it by units, right? Per client.
Yep.
We had one client fire us this month. That's one churn.
Yeah. I really like dollars. I really like percentage of gross revenue. But as you work your way through your maturity, you guys will find the right thing that works for you. Do you feel like there is a right or wrong answer?
No, just do it like that. And that's the whole thing is, and I notice I have clients all the time where, so for example, I have one client, they've been with me probably 4 or 5 years now. Their scorecards, we change them honestly, probably on a quarterly or biannually basis. And the idea here is that perfection's the enemy of progress. That's that age-old Winston Churchill quote, where if I can't calculate it today, then let me find something I can calculate that gets me closer to the pin. So if
We're
I'm
so
going,
good at
oh,
this
my
with sales reps,
ConnectWise,
right? Well, I'm
yeah,
going to build them some elaborate commission schedule that they make this much with a multiplier and a bonus multiplier, and then
and it takes your finance
payday
team
comes.
12 hours to figure out commission,
Yeah, yeah.
and you're
I
paying
love
people to
that.
bean count.
So
So
what's the
just
thing you can track today? And that's probably why we went to gross dollars at my MSP, because we can track it. I could pull up the ConnectWise invoice and go, this is how many dollars we lost. So I like it in its simplicity. It was easy. It was easy for my CSM to understand why his job was to retain that revenue. Because if we lost $5,000 in revenue, I got to walk into the service desk and go, let me know which one of those people you don't want to work here next week. Right. But you can put a face on it. You can put a name on it. They understand how those dollars tie back to how the business operates, right? If you get into the weird units and goofy stuff, you don't really see the business impact. And I really like tying these KPIs to our business outcome, right? If we add clients, then we add humans, and we add quality of life to the humans that we have, and we pay people more. We can do more things. We can take better care of folks. If we're losing revenue, all of that's off the table.
Well, and this also protects good revenue because, right, typically your customer success manager is only going to be working with clients that have an ongoing revenue stream with you, right? I think that's a good deviation here. If I'm not going to give them a customer success manager if they've bought in one project for me,
or if they're on that bronze plastic plan that we've been trying to upsell them out of since 1994.
Yeah, that's $400 a month, and
Yeah.
they go under budget the second they have 2 tickets. Yeah, it's not.
Yep.
You have to put a threshold here to where these are clients you're truly. It's a true relationship with them. They understand your value. They understand your life cycle. They understand everything that you do.
They're
That's
engaged.
the one that you want to nurture.
Yep. Love it. Absolutely love it. So,
But interesting, you talk about profitability in here.
yeah. Well, that's
Want to explain that?
nice, it's kind of a nice soft jump into profitability, right?
Yeah.
The part of the customer success manager's job is to make sure that this client is free flowing and has a good relationship and isn't bucking the system all the time, right? If this is a client that's always calling you and asking for discounts, or never wants to pay for anything but expects you to do the work, if they're the one who's doing move ads and changes and always coming to you going, well, you shouldn't bill me for that, you should go ahead and write that off. This is a client who we have misaligned goals with. This is a client who we're not being successful with. Agreement gross profit and effective hourly rate kind of fall in together. We should be managing the amount of time that we spend on them. I really like having customer success and VCIO mutually engaged in this, because when we have a client whose AGP or EHR is out of line, it's likely that this is when we need to engage VCIO services to go learn more about their technology, help figure out what we can automate, what we can streamline, what we can fix. And it may even be a conversation with our account manager to figure out, are they out of alignment with our best practices and with our standards? Have they not deployed our full stack? Because typically, unless we just did something knuckleheaded and underpriced a noisy customer, typically the problems are in failure to automate a noisy line of business application that we hadn't accounted for, or something misconfigured, or just some things we can automate our way out of. And if we're looking at this stat, if that's one of the things that we track for them, then we now have a needle that we know where the needle is, and we know what it looks like to move the needle.
Well, and I think too, it's a good checks and balances for your sales rep teams, because if they deliver poor pricing, right? I have a couple of clients where they're terrified to hire a sales executive to sell managed service agreements because, oh, what if he prices it wrong? What if it doesn't close? Like, right, all those insecurities that we have.
Yeah.
This is a good way to make sure that your clients are falling within that bell curve of the profitability you expect from your clients.
Well, you and I
So
have a
if a
mutual
sales rep-
friend who hired a sales rep and said, you know what, to sweeten the deal to close somebody, you can give them this for free, right? You can give them this much for free. This is a deal you can have in your back pocket. You can use it. And his sales rep went out, rolled out and closed a bunch of deals, came back and talked about it, went out and closed a bunch more deals, came back and talked about it. And all of a sudden, all the deals have this discount on them, every single one, for a month. And he comes to me and he goes, man, I think I screwed up. And I went, well, what'd you screw up? And he told me, and I said, did you tell him that he had to get approval from you to do it? Did you tell him that there were circumstances around which? Well, not really. Does it impact his commission? No. So basically what you did was told him your product is cheap and he's allowed to discount it. And why would he ever stick to his guns if that doesn't matter? So there is a part on the sales side of holding them accountable and making sure that there are standards around which they're required to that they're required to be involved here. You know, there's definitely a standard here where your sales team has to sell at a certain rate, and you should know what that rate is. Agreement gross profitability should start to drive that. You should be able to price that. By the time you have 400 or 500 agents on, by the time you have, excuse me, a stack of users, you should have that calculation down. You should know what it is. You should know what you have to charge to make the profits that you want. And you should have,
but at the end of the day too,
for going back and revisiting accounts that aren't profitable.
Exactly. And this is where the strategy and the responsibilities you have in your organization becomes so pivotal, because now myself as an owner, a VP, a director, whatever the title is, I now have people in our organization that are holding each other accountable from a peer perspective, not just myself as the single director. And our KPIs are driving that peer accountability as well.
Well, at the very least, KPIs say somebody's looking at it, right?
Yes.
We're not just going to have KPIs and never look at them. These are something we look at in a daily or a weekly or a monthly check-in. I like weekly for a lot of these numbers. Monthly sometimes gets too far between the goalposts. Daily gets a little repetitive, and the numbers sometimes don't change on a daily fashion. But you look at your numbers to decide which ones you need to check in on, which cadence, based on how far they vary, how often they move.
Totally. And here's an even more fun one. When you measure agreement profitability or effective rate, this also has some peer accountability for your service managers, because it's going to make sure that they're not throwing the kitchen sink at a front desk girl that's just being noisy, right? It's going to be like, hey, there should be some communication from the service team to either one,
roll it on-site tech and a tier 3 and a VCIO to go fix a printer.
Exactly. Or I shouldn't appoint a tier 3 to fix a printer, right? Let's even go further. If that's a high billable resource, then I need checks and balances to say, no, use the tier 1 guy, mentor the tier 1 guy, build better processes for the tier 1 guy, so that we can maximize the client experience with lower cost resources. Because there are those clients out there. I had one client, they had 280 users. Mm-hmm. They needed a lot of attention, right? Just from a volume perspective.
Yep.
So I had to build my processes out to have tier 1 to be able to service. And by the way, for a lot of you that go, oh, my clients' environments are too complicated, this was an actual finance broker where they were trading $1 million per 15 minutes. 280 users. And I was able to build out an entire tier 1 team to basically handle this, because I had this type of checks and balance to peer accountability, to where everybody was looking at it. And it wasn't just me, Mr. COO, beating them down. Yep. That was their own drivers.
Yep. So Dean threw a question in Q&A, and we're going to come to that one. Dean, we won't forget you. I've got that one flagged. We're going to come back to it. But Michael throws out, most of the KPIs for customer success, for the customer success manager, seem to be directly impacted by the operations team and how well they're doing their job. Does that lead to any having customer success in the sales department, but KPIs in another department? So let's talk about that. Where does customer success really belong? Where does it roll up in the organization? And how do we address this, services delivering on what customer success is responsible for? Start with where it belongs in the organization.
I love this, because I get this question all the time, Mike.
So what's your thought on that? Where does customer success belong in the organization?
So if we zoom out to that MSP fort that I drew out, right? There's some levels of expectations that all of those, the finance, the ops, the revenue, and the tech VPs, directors, will be responsible for in the organization. Now, if I think of it from this perspective, a revenue VP or a CRO, their primary objective is going to be the growth of the revenue in your organization, as well as what the net collected at the end of the year is going to be, which a lot of us have as quotas. Now, while you may say, oh, I don't have quotas, well, do you have a goal to grow X million this year? You have a quota.
And that's so if I have a job, right?
Right. Well, account manager, sales rep, whoever, right? At the end of the day, if I want to grow by top line, the only way I can grow my top line is by new sales.
Yep.
Now, I can be hindered in my ability to grow new sales if that revenue walks out the door. So there's a component to where I have to manage churn from a dollar perspective to maintain my revenue expectations. Mm-hmm. So if I'm going to tell my VP of revenue, my CRO, my sales director, here is your quota, part of that quota calculation is your expected churn, because everyone has some level of expected churn.
Mhm.
So vis-a-vis, if I have a VP that is responsible for the top line growth of my company, he has to own every seat in the company that can directly influence that top line growth, which is customer success.
Okay. So, but to Michael's point, now tech does a shitty job and you lose a customer. They now don't own the seat that is accountable to losing that revenue, but they're the ones that cause that revenue loss, right? How do you juggle that? I think that's what Michael's getting
at. Dean, sorry, he put a comment about me saying vis-a-vis. Sorry, I'm trying to contextualize. It's great. So when it comes to ops, there are some other levels here to where, what is operations expected for? If I have a VP of ops, if I have a COO, their net drivers are going to be cost of goods sold. So what are those revenue generating dollars per capita or per dollar, which means gross profitability. So if I think about it from this perspective, my service delivery manager, my ops team, they're really managing the cost for all those dollars. And I can show this from budgets. I can show these from P&Ls. I can show these from forecasting I've done with a lot of large MSPs. They are protecting the dollars that are coming into the company. So what their objective really is to make sure you load balance your services and are able to deliver your services at the cost that you predict. It's not necessarily is the client happy? It's not, is the client paying enough? It's, if I got $1,000, I can only spend $500 to deliver this service. How am I going to deliver this service? Now, that's where there's MRR and there's NRR, right? There's MSP and there's VAR. So I have to structure my teams to directly influence the costs that go into delivering my services. I actually did a webinar, Mike, on this exact topic at IT Nation last year, and it's actually a YouTube video. I'll post the link if I can find it real quick, where I actually show how you budget out your operations and service teams to ensure that they are more managing the costs of your services and doing services efficiently, not necessarily, right, client profitability.
And, at some point, the CSM has to live outside of the service delivery team, that technical team in your fort, so that they can go slap the service delivery team when they have a problem, right? Because their job really is to catch service delivery problems before they happen and work with the leadership team to resolve them. And that's your leadership team, right? We're trying to fix service delivery failures in-house before they impact the client.
Yeah, I don't want to convolute the work of my VPs or directors, right? I want them to focus on directly attributable company outcomes, which is your P&L or your balance statement. So I got to, if you think about it from rows in your P&L, for those of you that don't know P&L, I apologize. I know there might be some customer success managers in here, but you got to draw the line somewhere to where that's why the fort is built, because someone has to protect some line at a high level, and that is their KPI. Top line growth, percentage of revenue, which is your cost of goods sold, your gross margin, your sales and marketing expenses, all the way down to net profit.
Yep. Love it.
So and if you want a full P&L breakdown webinar, let us know in the chat and I'll schedule one out in probably a month.
There you go. Kyle would love to take on that topic with you guys. And then you can go over the difference between a P&L and a balance sheet, because everybody loves that one too.
And a forecast and a budget.
So let's talk about CSAT and NPS. And I lumped these two into the same line here, as the same I did with AGP and EHR, because they're related, but they're not the same, right? So to Dean's point, what's the difference between CSAT and NPS? Now, CSAT, in my mind, CSAT is the yellow straight face, the green smiley face, the red frowny face, like click a button, we're done. Real high level attrition of, is my client happy at the end of a ticket? Right? It's real time. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, in high level, right? If we really break this down, and this is really a touch and feel KPI, because CSAT and churn, they do go hand in hand, right? If your client's happy, they're not going to leave you. Yep. So to me, sometimes this is a difficult KPI, because it's almost a microeconomics in the way that our businesses operate.
Well, the other,
but it's also
really
important
hard
from a reputational.
Yeah, but the other reason that it's really hard is, I had a customer who was 180 clients, and every quarter when I would meet with them, I'd go, we did 200 service tickets for you last quarter, and we got 12 CSAT responses. If you were pissed at me, I would never know. I want to be very clear with you. Part of this relationship is you giving me constructive feedback, and I promise you I can take it. But when 12 out of 200 people, that's 6% of responses, tell me how they feel about us, and they're overwhelmingly positive, I don't believe we're 99.9% making you happy. So I need some more constructive criticism from you to solve for this, or all I can work on is my gut, right? And I think there's when we look at CSAT as just the result of a tool, we fall into that blind spot of what about the person who didn't click the button in the email, right?
Oh, I love when people tell me, oh, I have a 99.3% CSAT rating because they all click the smiley face. And I'm like, how many clients left you in the last 6 months? Oh, 4. Okay, you do not have 99%.
Not unless you have 400 clients.
Yeah.
So this is one of those things where you can use tools. In my mind, those tools serve one purpose, and they raise a red flag when somebody's really pissed at the end of a ticket, and they get that email and go, God, no, that wasn't a great experience, and they mash the button, right? But that only catches a small percentage of them. But CSAT is my customer satisfied with the level of service that I'm delivering? Some of that is about those after ticket items. Some of that is just your gut. I call it your spidey senses, right? When my spidey senses are tingling, I know I've got a problem. And in our customer success module, there's actually a place where an account manager can go in, or a CSM can go in and say, I just talked to my client. I didn't get the best feeling from talking to them, and I can go slide the CSAT meter left or right a little bit. NPS is a different concept. NPS is very specifically, would you recommend me to your friends, family, and other people that you interact with? And NPS, there's a lot of science behind NPS. It's much less spidey senses and gut feelings. I don't think NPS is a great KPI for MSPs unless you're very large. And here's why. The sample size for NPS to work has to be pretty large. If you have less than 100 responses, or maybe 200 or 300 responses, it's probably scientifically garbage. It's not to say it can't catch some problems and still act as that hand raise. But if I'm a small to mid-size MSP, I'm using CSAT as my metric way before I'm using NPS. What's your 2 cents on that, Kyle?
No, I agree with you. Regardless of sample size, right? There's a response rate component to this, but I think there's an intentionality with a lot of this, because you mentioned, right? Oh, the ticket responses, it's all, we only do CSAT off of closed tickets. Well, there's inherent error and blinders in that, to where, are you doing them when you do your QBRs? Are you having a team intentionally call their clients and say, hey, I just want to get some feedback? And if you don't have that intentionality to ask more questions, not just maybe on the ticket process, talk to me about my account management process. Give me feedback on our invoicing process. Give us feedback on our pricing, right? There's a lot of feedback that we have blinders on because, right, a lot of us are the accidental entrepreneur, where we've built our company around our expertise, which is IT services. But we forget that, right, as an organization, there's some other processes that might be painful, right? Hey, Mr. Client, we just onboarded you 2 months ago. Rate our onboarding experience.
Yeah.
There's those things that are in there that can really zoom the lens out of, hey, are we a great organization to work with as an organization, not just as IT professionals?
So, one of the things that we talk about a ton is leaving a meeting with just a simple conversation of, Mr. Customer, thanks for coming to your periodic business review, whatever you call it. Do me a favor, I'd just like some feedback. Did we deliver value today? Like, tell me about the value that we delivered to you today. And if your client goes, you know what, Alex, you crushed it. I've been waiting 20 years for you to give me a freaking budget, and you finally did today. You delivered value in this meeting. Great, things went well. I'm happy. If my client comes back to me and says, actually, I was kind of glazed over until after the third slide, paying attention to what's going on my Apple Watch. Could we never do this again? Those are two way different experiences, and we need to be accounting for some of that. And that's where in Lifecycle Insights, we're going back and giving the CSM the ability to say, this is the reaction I got. And those two reactions are completely different things. And this leads into our next KPI for customer success, which is, if we're delivering a QBR, one of the things we should be asking for is referrals. Alex, you killed it. The budget was exactly what I needed. Thank you for finally getting your head out of your ass and giving it to me. Great. Kyle, I'm really glad for that feedback. I'm sorry it took me so long to get it right. I just finally found a piece of fancy software. You'd think as IT guys, we'd have all that cool software, but I just finally found one that will do it. And now I can give you that kind of information. I'm glad you appreciated it. Who else do you know who might see value in the same kind of insights that we talked about in this meeting today? I noticed you're friends with 12 people from Bob's advertising shop up the street on LinkedIn. Any chance you could introduce me to somebody there?
There is an art to referrals, isn't there?
There is. It is and if you're good at it, it solves for a lot of the prospecting problems that MSPs have. And we can have a whole conversation on that one too. But staying on the CSAT and NPS, we track a lot of things that help us determine whether a client's at risk of churn or whether a client is really satisfied in what you do. And some of these things are when you do a quarterly business review, are you guys tracking a metric that says, did the decision maker show up? Did we actually meet on the cadence we were supposed to? Did they accept the recommendations you made when you told them they weren't in line with best practices? And did they improve stack alignment in their organization based on the presentation that you made to that customer? If they did most of those things, you probably have a pretty high standard there. You probably have a client who appreciates you, who's satisfied with you. If they did few or none of those things, you have a client who doesn't really love you that much. And those are 4 little check boxes you can make on a spreadsheet that says, did my decision maker show up? I like to add to that, did they bring the decision, did all of my decision makers show up, right? Because I want the whole C-suite and somebody from every department and frontline managers and all of that. But are we on cadence? Did they accept my recommendations? And did their alignment with my stack improve, right? All 4 of those things I think are important, unless of course alignment's at 100% and you have no recommendations for them, which I don't think is very many people's case today.
Nope.
Dean says, how about the opposite? For people who don't have 300 plus NPS responses, maybe they get 10 or 50. Should they have an automatic call to action process to leverage that one-time NPS positivity to build an actual referral Google review? That's not a bad point. Instead of not bothering to send out NPS because it's not going to be statistically significant, there is other value you can get from it, right? Which is, I know who my raving fans are. And now I have the ability to go act on them. I'll give you another flip side to that, Dean. One of my favorite tactics is to call all of my customers if I haven't had this conversation with them already and just say, hey, Kyle, I really appreciate doing business with you. And I feel bad that I've never asked you this before. We've been doing business a long time and I just feel like an idiot. We've been doing business together for 2 years and I realize I've never asked you what a good referral looks like for you. I meet a lot of people in my day-to-day. If I met somebody who was a good referral for you, what would they look like? And what I'm doing is setting him up to say, all right, now Kyle's thinking about the fact that Alex might actually send him a referral. And I'm probably going to, I'm going to try. But he's probably going to do the same for me because he's going to feel a little guilty. So I can set that up with all of my clients mentally. And then I can go ahead and send out that NPS survey, get the responses, even if it's just from 20 of my clients, pick the top 3, 4, or 5 responses and just reach out to them and say, hey, I noticed that you gave us a really positive response there. Would you hook me up with a Google review, or is there somebody in mind that here's a couple ways you could help me? A Google review, introduce me to somebody, whatever.
It's funny as you're saying that. I totally forgot that we used to do this, but we actually used to do mixers in our office. We'd have our client decision makers come and just hang out because, right, it's still small business, right? They all go to some level of a chambers event or a local small business event. You can, if you have 50, 60, 100 clients, invite them. And if 20 show up, you may build your own little world of referral sources and networking that happens. And they're going to thank you because your logo's on the wall while they're all hanging out.
And people do business with people they know, like, and trust. What happens at a mixer? You get to know people, you decide who you like, and you learn to trust people.
And a lot of the barriers are broken down in those events, right? Because really it's not sponsored by, like, their vendor is sponsoring it. There's only one vendor, right? So you can build these out to where it's a comfortable, safe place, I guess we could call it.
Yep.
And there is huge value in that. Now, there was one thing, though, that I wanted to touch on because I think there's the opposite of this. You get that one NPS where they're like, screw you, whatever. Last week, I'm upset, rah, 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 rah. I'm always skeptical on automated action when it comes to those scenarios as well, because there's always, and I think this is where talking to the sample size kind of has to matter here. You get one bad review, do not go rock the boat. Do not go knee jerk and completely change your process. Do not go, right, implement something new, have one bad feedback on it and pull it right out. We had this happen at Sierra Pacific Group all the time.
Yeah. I can say our response to that was simple. It was an email went out to a group of leadership who got together and started what we called CPR. Right. And in CPR, what's the first thing you do? You check for a pulse, you check for a clear airway before you start pounding on somebody's chest. Right. And so we would reach out to the customer and go, hey, we understand that that maybe we've missed something here. We understand that maybe we delivered you a less than perfect experience. First, I'm so sorry. Your satisfaction matters to me. So please give me some feedback about what we could have done better or different. How can we learn from this? How can we move forward to be a better company from this? And if you approach it from that humble, that really humble approach, you're going to find that your customers typically jump on board with it. In fact, we used to, that was standard fare for us, which was, and we did it with CSAT, right? Every time we got a yellow face or a red face on our little click buttons, somebody from the leadership team would reach out. And
so real quick, I think we should jump to referrals on this because, right, we're talking a lot about managing that client relationship. And I had mentioned to you the art of referrals. And I think that might be fun for people that are customer success managers here.
Yeah.
Why do we track referrals?
Because it's the easiest sale you'll ever get for a new customer. I mean, the easiest sale you'll ever get is selling back to your existing customer, but that's your account manager's job, right? As a CSM, this is the opportunity for us. And I will tell you this, at my MSP, we had 0 direct salespeople. We didn't do direct sales. We were 100% referral built. And we could count on, probably 4 referrals for every 10 QBRs we did. So we knew how to get them. It is a science. It's absolutely a science. You have to deliver value to your client in the meeting. You have to capitalize on that value. And we did it with what I call the dumb Columbo, which is like, hey, I get a little uncomfortable. I get a little weird. And I go, oof, Kyle, it's uncomfortable for me even to ask this, but you and I both know part of my job is helping grow the business. And as part of that, we're always looking for new people to do business with. I noticed on your LinkedIn, you're connected to Dean, and I'd really like to get to know Dean. You think he'd see value in this kind of stuff? Would you mind dropping a good word to us or maybe introducing us?
What's interesting is I think I want to break one part down just to make it, teach a best practice here, because I did something similar, but before I went to any type of client review, right? So let's say Ashley's our client, right? And I would go on Ashley's LinkedIn page kind of to contextualize a little bit what you were doing, look at all the small business owners that they're connected with in their network. So in my brain, I could have a list of like 5 to 7 people that I'm going, hey, they're my target market. I know that CEO is my market, that CEO is my market, that CEO is my market. And during that conversation, that review, right, it would be, hey, Ashley, I saw, by the way, you were connected with Joe down the street at something plumbing, right? Acme Plumbing. And, oh, yeah, I've known that guy for like 15 years. Man, you know what? I don't know if you'd be open to it, but would you be cool if you introduce us? Right? Like I'd almost try to build it into the conversation because I was the same way, right? There was imposter syndrome. I don't want to just directly ask.
Well, I have no problem directly asking. Let's be clear. I just know that feels pushy in sales. Yeah. And I'm a big believer that anything you can do to let your customer know you're not just an automated salesman, but that you're a real live human who is just trying to make a living just like everybody else. You can build relationship, you can improve relationship, or you can just go, hey, I know Joe, hook me up with him so I can go make some more money. I got a Ferrari payment to make. Those two things, they land completely differently. So it's about how you ask. And I know you well enough to know that you ask appropriately. I found a method that worked and I used it over and over and over again. And this is like anything else, right? This is go try it, figure out if it worked or not, iterate on it, and go try it again. And when you feel like you've got it really dialed in, use that same thing over and over. Yeah.
Well, and I think we skipped over one important thing with this, which is never just ask, hey, is there anyone that you could refer to us? Because they're going to sit there on the moment in the spot you're asking them to think of everybody they know who could potentially use your services.
Yep.
They're never going to think of it. If you walk in there with 3 to 5 names in your head of like, hey, let me just try. If I have a 25% close rate on new logos and I ask for 5 people, I'm guaranteed if he introduces all 5 people, I will get 1 client from this referral question.
Yep, absolutely.
And I think to build this into a KPI, right? What we're talking about is customer acquisition costs. This is a free lead.
Customer acquisition down, right?
Yes.
Talking about driving that customer acquisition cost down because we're getting warm leads. We're getting people who we already have some sort of a relationship with from the day that we meet them the first time.
Mm-hmm. It's a whole different funnel, right? It's not your inside funnel or outbound funnel where you're sitting there just really playing the numbers game. You pretty much guarantee if you get introduced by a close personal friend of theirs saying, hey, they deliver amazing services, they're going to be like, okay, no skepticism. How can we work with you like you work with Ashley?
Exactly. And if your MSP has 50 clients and you target 10 of them for a referral every month, you're literally targeting your client for a referral every 5 months. You're not going back to them that often. And odds are pretty good that if you pay attention to who your clients are, to Dean's point, reciprocity, learn their business, know and understand their business, you'll probably get to send them a lead inside of that time frame. And they will tell you, I'm going to give you one more nugget. They'll tell you, you know what, don't come to me with a lead. Send it to James. He's my sales guy. He will take care of it. Great. Do that. Always CC the owner. Make your leads your introductions in writing. Always include the owner. Make sure that they know that you delivered that lead. And if they ever ask you, if they were questioning about it, hey, you know what? I don't know Joe as well as I know you. And I just know that if your name's on it, it's going to get handled. And he's my buddy. He's my homeboy. I wanted to make sure that he got exactly the right service. Not that I don't trust your people, but it's not about knowing that I gave you a lead, so give me one. I mean, it's exactly about that. But when we're talking to our customer, right, we're just making sure that they know we support their business. We bring them leads, we bring them people, and we expect that in return.
It's like you have to basically treat the relationship like a relationship.
Right. If you put work into a relationship, shit,
like there's that level to where, warm handoffs are a thing. It's showing like, hey, I care about you this much. There's so much that we take for granted. This is another quick takeaway, right? With this agreement profitability, and they go hand in hand. I'm going to come full circle in a second. When you're looking at your client profitability, don't try to do it all at once. I teach a lot of my clients to do top 2, bottom 2, or top 5, bottom 5. Meaning, I'm going to look at the top 2 most profitable clients and the top 2 least profitable clients, and I'm only going to address those 4 clients this month. That's it. Because if I try to do the whole thing, I'm just going to run around with my head chopped off. Yep. And the reason those top 2 clients are so important is exactly what you're mentioning, Alex, is I need to go brag to them to show them why they didn't need me a bunch last month. Let me show all the automation I did for them. Let me take them out to dinner and say how much I appreciate working for them. Because there is
come by the office in the morning with a jug full of coffee, like that vat of coffee that they sell at some of these places. Like get the handle, roll in there, bring everybody coffee and a donut. It costs you $20, and you get to keep a client who's spending 5, 6, 7, 8 grand a month with you.
And when you drop by, go, hey, by the way, did that referral I send you ever follow up? Yeah. Right? It's a chance for you to show your value and brag a little bit, because doing IT in the shadows, doing customer success in the shadows is just going to get you fired.
Yeah. And this is where we have to hold people accountable to these numbers, because as we start to deploy KPIs, now I get to have the conversation with you and say, hey, Dean, what is it you're doing this month to support these KPIs to make sure this is happening? And that keeps us from getting in the rut of, oh God, they called again. I'm never going to be over. These people they won't leave me alone. I'm frustrated. Everything's always freaking broke. Like we tend to get down in the dumps with them and their technical problems, right? And if we put some KPIs out there, we put some positive reinforcement out there, we get to make sure that we're delivering on our promise, which is a real relationship instead of just what do you want this time? Because when we get to that point, our customers feel like,
never be the exhausting phone call.
Yeah. Yep. And it happens. So it's about accountability. All of these KPIs are about accountability. They're about making sure that this goes back to is it Meg Whitman that gets credit for it, but isn't the one that said it? Like what gets watched gets done. Yeah. So I can never remember who said it. So, but I think she repeated it after somebody else, but former HP CEO, I think she was. But what gets watched gets done, right? We get these KPIs on here. To Kyle's point earlier, once you've mastered one of these, it's okay to move the goalpost, right? Once we've mastered churn, maybe we start looking at gross profit. Once we figure out gross profit, maybe we start going to look at EHR, although the two are pretty well tied. Maybe once we master it on an average across all of our customers, now we go pick and choose the ones who are high or low and focus in on those. Some of these KPIs can be tracked in lifecycle. If you have our customer success module, the customer success module has some KPI tracking stuff baked in. Yes, Jim. Thanks for the softball. Peter Drucker, what gets measured gets managed. I like that. Yeah. So Meg ripped him off. Okay, I was pretty sure she wasn't the one who invented it, but it is reality, right? Nobody wants to come to their daily or weekly stand up and get called on all their metrics and go, Kyle, where are you at on your churn? Off track. Where are you at on your AGP? Off track. Where are you at on your referrals? Off track. Okay, well, we got 3 things to talk about on our issues list, right?
Yep.
This sucks. That's not a fun meeting. So Kyle's not going to want to come back to that meeting again. He's going to work a little harder next week and figure out some ways to improve those things.
And don't just automate measurement, but that's a topic for a different day, because
So we
it
got
will
just
just
a
sit
couple
in
of minutes
inbox.
left, and we've screwed the pooch here. We were supposed to talk about it. Maybe we'll wrap this into the final one. We're supposed to talk about what happens when the same person wears multiple hats, and we didn't get there. Do you want to give a little preview to how we'll wrap that up on the next one of these? Because I don't think we have enough time to finish it, and I do have a hard stop.
I don't know if we have enough time, man. At the end of the day, if we have to think about complementary seats when it comes to, can one person do both, or does it become juxtaposed? And what I mean by that is, do they have an identity crisis with, well, I'm supposed to do this for this seat and this for this seat, and I'm sitting there going, I'm going to get fired regardless of what I do.
Because I'm supposed to carry a quota and sell them more stuff, as well as keep them from leaving to somebody who does the job cheaper, right?
Exactly. So what we have to do really is figure out what is the most complementary seat in order for them to truly succeed. And right, Mike, you threw out an idea of, well, a lot of these are service-based. Couldn't this be in a service, right? And to the Michael Drucker quote, what gets measured gets managed. At the end of the day, if these responsibilities are being maintained and they're being measured and someone is accountable for them, I tell this to a lot of my clients, I don't care where they sit on the org chart, honestly. To me, it doesn't matter as long as it is hitting some form of a target.
And when
now you will give them an idea. So go ahead.
Yeah, when you miss, it's time to go back and look at why you missed. And if you're missing consistently, it may be because you've got competing priorities on the same human.
Exactly. People are having identity crises. So really think of this from a strategy and a what is within my control. I always did have account management and client success actually married together, because I was concerned about LTV from a close rate, right? Like how practical are some of these cross-sell upsells, because now they're sitting there right in their own body going, I'm not going to upsell them if they're going to churn, but I have this own juxtapose. I guess I'm kind of contradicting myself just a tad here. But sometimes maybe that customer success rep is your sales manager, and right, you have account management be its own seat.
Absolutely. Working with MSPs, I can tell you, with almost 1,000 that we work with now, between account management and customer success, those are typically the same hat. So upwards of $5 million. So if you're sub $5 million, these two are probably going to have to be the same human in the same seat. And you're going to have to try and make sure you understand which KPIs matter at which points in time and how to pull the levers to make sure that they're not at odds with one another. And I think that's
what's real fun is when customer success becomes a director that is a counterpoint to the sales director. But that's a topic for a different day.
It should be there, right? As you get bigger, it should be there. But with that, guys, thanks so much for coming out. Thanks for the interaction and the conversations. Those are fantastic. Can we get a COA and you, Kyle webinar where we talk about Kyle's top 10 favorite lines on his chart of accounts? Oof, that might be
that might put people to sleep.
Well, there's a few numbers nerds in here that would get excited about it. Everybody else would go take a nap.
It'll put them to sleep, but it'll also make you guys a ton of money.
Right. All righty. We'll take that into consideration, Dean, and see if we can make that one come to reality. That may just wind up being a YouTube video so people can zone out on their own. But thanks everybody for coming out. It's been a good one. Again, come find us on LinkedIn. Come hang out and chat. We'll continue the conversation. This recording will go out to everybody who showed up, along with a copy of the slide deck, and we'll make sure that stuff gets out to you guys very, very quickly. So thanks so much. Appreciate every one of you. And we will see you guys in it's a week or two. I think it's 2 weeks.
2 weeks, and we'll send out the links to register, and we'll see you guys then.
Send a file. Well, the link will be in the recording with the email. or in
Right
the
on.
email with the recording. Yeah, that's how those words work. All right, guys, have a great
Words
rest
are
of your
difficult.
day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.